Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our September Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and I will now call the meeting to order. First order of business is, are there any disclosure to pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof of any members of the committee regarding any of the items this evening? None noted, thank you. Could I have an approval of the agenda as presented? Councillor McHugh, Mr. Edison, any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Now could I have a motion to approve the minutes of July the 18th, seeing as we took August off and had a nice break, so we'll have to do some catch up tonight. Councillor Card, you move. Seconded. Councillor O'Neill, any errors, omissions, or questions regarding those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, the planning meetings are conducted as prescribed by Section 3413 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended for one zoning bylaw amendment application affecting land in the Murray Ward, two zoning bylaw amendment applications affecting land in the Sydney Ward, and one official plan amendment application affecting land in the Sydney Ward, and one draft plan of condominium application affecting land in the Trenton Ward, and one draft plan of subdivision affecting land in the Murray Ward. The meetings will be conducted in the following manner for each application. First, I will identify each application being considered, then I will ask planning staff to outline the application being considered, then ask if there are any members of the public who have registered in advance to attend and participate in this meeting, or have any questions or comments regarding each application. If there are no public comments or questions, I will ask the committee if they have any questions or comments. And once the committee's questions and comments have been addressed, the committee will consider and vote on each application. If you wish to provide comments, please state your name and address for the record prior to addressing the committee. The committee has been delegated the responsibility to conduct public meetings as prescribed under the Planning Act. A full report of the meeting's proceedings will be submitted to City Council on Wednesday, October the 16th, 2024. Council will make the decision on each stated application. Anyone other than the applicant who wishes to receive further notice of Council's decision on each application must submit a written request for notice of Council's decision to the Director of Planning and Development Services. I will now ask the Director of Planning and Development Services, please advise the committee on how notice of these meetings were given. Brian, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. Notice of the applications being considered this evening were given in keeping with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, by first-class mail on August 30th, 2024, and posting of signs on the subject properties on the same date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the first public meeting of the evening is Staff Report 24-065 PD, Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application, and the owner is MAC 5 Corporation. The agent is Biglari Group. The location is 1436 to 1476 Old Highway 2. The file numbers are D09/S24/24 and D09/25/24. And before we get into this, I think there needs to be a little change in the I guess the city's information here, because it says when it's located in part lot 22 broken front in the former city of Trenton, and I don't think the city of Trenton's boundary ever went that far, and it's also on down below in the other presentation. So could you make that change? I don't think I'm wrong. I know where the boundaries are, and if any old dyed-in-the-wool Sydney people are here, they'd probably not be happy to see that, I would think. But anyway, with those amendments, we'll continue on. Okay, without further ado, I would ask that Kelly West, the Manager of Planning Services, to outline this application, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So the applications presented tonight are requesting a change to the policy and regulations on the subject property, and a subsequent application for draft plan of subdivision would be required if Council does approve this policy and zoning changes. The applicant's agent has requested in writing that a decision on the applications tonight be deferred, and a letter was provided to the committee, I think, 2 days ago. City staff are amenable to that request if the planning committee would so desire to listen to that deferral. But I will give a little bit of an overview. The applicant's agent is also here and would like to give a presentation, which we do have. So I'll just quickly go through a little bit of the report. As I said, it is recommended for a deferral, but we wanted to hold this as a public meeting tonight, so this will be considered the required legislated public meeting. So any comments from the public should be heard tonight, as well as if anybody would like to submit any future written comments, they can definitely do that as well. So the purpose of the official plan amendment application is to redesignate the subject property from our future urban development area to a new site-specific policy area to permit residential development on municipal water and private individual septic systems. And then the concurrent zoning amendment application would change the subject property zone category from Development D to a rural residential exception zone for those proposed lots in the subdivision. There are 29 lots proposed at this time on partial services with a few site-specific zone provisions relating to lot size and lot frontage. The intent of the applications is therefore to set out a policy framework and zoning regulations that would essentially permit a rural residential subdivision on partial services. And the Beglieri Group, the agents on the file, have submitted several documents to support those applications, and they're listed on my report in pages 2 and 3, and I'm sure that the presentation will cover some of the meat of those reports. Those reports have been circulated to appropriate city departments and agencies for comments. Most of the departmental comments that we have received back indicate that further detailed subject matter comments will come to the planning department for the subdivision application, the future subdivision application. Lower Trent did have a couple concerns with interpretation of the hazards and the setbacks that were noted in the planning justification report. So the accuracy of those could come at a future submission or modification to these applications, as they've requested that those hazards should be in some kind of protective designation and zone. So the property is approximately just over 8 hectares. It's on Old Highway 2. It has also frontage on the Bay of Quinte. And there are two existing dwellings on the property with 2 accesses, driveways for those buildings, as well as a barn and a shed associated with one of the residential dwellings. The future urban development area designation, which is on our official plan schedules, number A, is applied to lands that we've identified as a long-term growth area, and we are envisioning those to be, of course, on full municipal services. We also would allow for municipal service and communal sewage systems. The future urban development areas are also zoned to only permit what's existing on existing lots of records, which is typically a single detached dwelling, or other uses such as agriculture, forestry, open space, anything that's sort of compatible with the existing land uses and don't require municipal services. The policy change and the subsequent proposed development really doesn't comply with the policy framework of the PPS and the city's official plan, in that the current designation really is like a holding category for those lands for our future expansion of our urban boundary. Provincial policies typically direct development to settlement areas, and the proposed scenario that the application is proposing, the municipal water and private services, is on the lowest rung of the servicing hierarchy of those PPS policies. And by the same token, it is mirrored in our official plan, as that is the way that we would like to see development as well. We envision that those FDA lands would not be developed until 2030 in our current current official plan, and that it should be full municipal services, or like I said, municipal water and communal services. So ultimately, the policy framework sets out that a comprehensive approach should be assessed for all of the FDA designated lands prior to the city even contemplating development on individual pockets of parcels of land. As of tonight's meeting, we have received 2 written submissions as a result of the notice of these applications. And these letters were provided to you as a committee. The concerns raised range from policy conformity, land use compatibility, traffic, some servicing and stormwater issues, and environmental impacts on the bay particularly. The concerns outlined in these written submissions and any that might be brought up tonight would be recorded and considered in a follow-up with the Beglieri Group and come forward in a decision item to pack at a future date. So as I mentioned, Mr. Chair, I think that the Beglieri Group has a presentation prepared. I'll stop right there.
Okay, thank you very much, Kelly. So whoever is Representative Biglieri, please come forward and state your name, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a PowerPoint presentation that was sent in. Oh, with my clicker. Thank you very much. So thank you. My name is Rochelle Larocque. I am a registered professional planner and partner with the Biglieri Group, and we represent MAC5 Corp for this application. So to provide context, in addition to what planning staff have provided, the property is located on the south side of Old Highway 2, within the, and on north of the Bay of Quinte. I will remind committee that I was here about a year ago this time, presenting an application for resort development on this property. After that public meeting, we regrouped as a team and came back in response to the comments that we received from this committee as well as the public that a resort development wasn't palatable. However, developing it for residential purposes would be more suitable and more in keeping with the immediate area, which is what we've done. Just to provide a little bit more context, this is the site. There were former buildings on the property which have been taken down, some of them. It's in an area with a mix of single detached dwellings predominantly, with other residential developments to both the east and west along Highway 2. So the proposed development at this time is for 29 rural residential lots with 1- and 2-story detached dwellings. Access would be via Old Highway 2 with one 20-meter wide municipal right-of-way, so it would be a public road. A temporary cul-de-sac would be provided at the eastern edge to allow further extensions to the east as the lands to the east are developed. The servicing at this point is proposed as municipal water and private individual septic, as there is the existing water main along Old Highway 2. When municipal sewer services are installed along this area, we fully recognize that those lots existing on private septics would be required to connect to municipal services, which could then lead to an increase in number of houses in this area through severances, which would allow for further infilling. We did have conversations with city staff about putting a communal system in for this development. At that time, there was little interest at the municipal level, which is why we've come forward with private septic systems for each of these lots. And I should also note that all of the development will be outside of the floodplain area, so there won't be any development within that sensitive natural area. So as staff went through, the total site is about 8.8 hectares. Net residential area is 7.2, with a total density of 3.3 if you include the road, 4 units per hectare without the road. Minimum lot area is proposed at 0.2 hectares, which is capable of handling a private septic system. So as part of our review and part of our submission for this revised proposal for this site, we did undertake through an additional subconsultant, Parcel Economics, a review of housing needs in the municipality of Quinte West. The land needs assessment that was completed in 2022 identified that there would be approximately 52 new residential units required in the next 25 years. There are changes coming at the provincial level which change the growth numbers that the province uses. Typically, it had been created through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. The new growth numbers will be based on Ministry of Finance numbers. Ministry of Finance numbers have typically been more accurate than Ministry of Municipal Affairs numbers, identifying the need in terms of housing, tracking growth, tracking investment in the province. Those numbers have typically been higher. So based on the parcel economic study that looked at housing needs, it's identified that there's just a little over 6,700 new residential units needed between 2021 and 2046. And this is based on the Ministry of Finance numbers, which means that there are approximately 1,500 additional new homes required within Quinte West above what was identified in the 2022 land needs assessment. So as outlined, we've requested an official plan amendment. The lands are designated urban future development area. Identified that it is required for future long-term growth, but the adopted official plan from 2023 does allow future development on full municipal services or municipal water and privately owned and operated sewage systems as approved by the NOECP. We do recognize that this official plan has not been given full approval, but it has been adopted by council. So this new site-specific policy for this land would permit low-density residential development on municipal water and private individual septic systems, as this current the current number of homes and the current subdivision development is not permitted within the current official plan. Likewise, the zoning amendment is also required to rezone it to rural residential with site-specific exceptions to recognize reduced minimum lot areas and lot frontages. The proposed 0.2 hectares is large enough to support new septic systems, particularly since these properties are all on public water supply. So as you can see, the RR zone, or rural residential, we're not looking at adding any additional uses. We would be recognizing and abiding by those regulations and those permitted uses in the RR zone. It's specifically to reduce the minimum lot area as well as to reduce minimum lot frontages. And as staff has identified, we completed a number of supporting studies as part of this application. So a housing assessment by Parcel Economics, our planning rationale report, the functional servicing and preliminary stormwater management, which basically shows how we can service this property and how we can service this development, as well as where the stormwater will go and how it will be treated at a high level. The hydrogeological and terrain elevation study, as well as the EIS, or environmental impact study, was completed to show how the land can support these proposed houses, as well as identify any sensitive natural features and the flood line on the property. a traffic impact study to identify what, if any, traffic impacts with the additional houses will be on the area, as well as archaeological investigations and phase 1 environmental site assessment for ESA. So as outlined, we have requested a deferral for this application to provide us an additional opportunity to go back based on the comments that we received from both members of committee and the public from this evening. Similar to what was afforded us with the last public meeting, that we were able to hear the comments from the committee, that we were able to hear the comments from the community, and amend the application where needed, provide additional information if required, and allow for further discussions with staff to see if there are modifications to the plan that need to be required, rather than making a decision this evening, which would likely end up in a rather adversarial position. We want to work with staff and want to work with the community to provide a development plan for this property. And that is it. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Before I turn it out to public input, between yourself and staff, what are you looking at for time frame? 60 days, 30 days? What would you be looking at for time frame? Excuse me.
I would hope that we'd be able to bring something back next month. That would be the hope.
You're comfortable with that, ma'am, your group?
We can certainly work
Okay.
with that time frame.
Okay, because I think it gives people a chance that this, it's just not going to be yesterday or
It's not
next year or something like that,
Yep,
yeah, yeah,
yep, that's absolutely, we can work with that.
okay. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I will now ask, are there any members of the public who wish, other than the presenter that wants to speak in favor of this application? Are there any ones who are in opposition or have general questions? Please come forward and state your name and address, please, for the record.
Hi, my name's Crystal Tessier, 1480 Old Highway 2. Mayor Harrison, Quinte West councillors, and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Crystalline. My husband and I bought our home at 1480 Old Highway 2 and then 1478, the vacant lot beside it, back in June of 2020. We have called Quinte West home for the past 4 years. We love our quiet, peaceful property, and we were told by members of the planning department at the time we purchased our home that the property behind us, which is 1436 to 1476 Old Highway 2, would have to be land banked for at least 10 years. Then it could possibly be rezoned from agricultural to residential. We were also told at that time that Quinte West was prioritizing the increase of residential and commercial building at the west end of Trenton. That was 4 years ago. Yet here we are again, listening to another proposal for rezoning the site. We feel discouraged and upset that Mr. McLaughlin and MAC 5 have proposed quite a substantial subdivision to go in behind our properties. And we feel discouraged and upset that Quinte West is allowing him the platform to do that. According to my calculations, we have at least 6 years before anything should be considered there. So I'd like to share my concerns and hope that you will defer MAC 5's proposal for zoning until a much future time. Concern number 1, environmental. Mr. McLaughlin has already clear-cut 23 acres of trees and shrubs behind our property. Erosion is a great possibility along the shoreline. We were informed by Gage Como of the Lower Trent Conservation Authority that they will be reviewing erosion testing done before any building can be permitted there. However, I wish he could come and look at the property today, since it has changed drastically since February of 2023. Concern number 2, environmental. According to the Ministry of Natural Resources, this site contains woodland and an unevaluated wetland. Will the ministry be doing more testing at this site? Will they get to review the plans for proposed changes? And should a subdivision really be built on a wetland area? Concern number 3, environmental. According to this proposed site plan, there will be 29 lots, each with their own septic. And I have learned something tonight from the speaker from the Biglieri group, that this will be enough room for septic bed. However, if you look at the plan, there are many homes and septic beds very close to the Bay of Quinte. Concern number 4, environmental. Although it does not show on this plan, I would be interested in knowing if MAC 5 has an intention to hold one of the lots open so that all of those lots can have deeded access to the bay. And if so, that means that the Bay of Quinte will be subject to overuse in this area with an increase in noise and water pollution. Concern number 5, use of agricultural land. Why is it that prime agricultural land is being considered for building? Crops grow in fertile soils, which this site provides and which it is zoned for. Why are we using this to build houses? Farmland seems to be shrinking in our province, and this certainly is not helping the costs of food by removing prime farm and growing land. Once houses are built there, we will lose that fertile soil forever. Concern number 6, housing. Yes, Ontario does have a shortage of housing crisis. However, with this proposed subdivision, this will not help that shortage. Any homes built next to the Bay of Quinte will have a high price tag. These will not be housing people who are from the lower socioeconomic bracket and who are looking for affordable housing. Concern number 7, traffic. Yes, the speaker from Biglieri Group said that there was a traffic report done. However, this proposed site plan shows one way in and out of the subdivision, which shoulders our property. This will certainly mean a great increase in the amount of traffic and noise in our area. We already have the Stonecrest subdivision, the Kenron Estate subdivision, and Bayside Secondary and Elementary schools nearby. We are concerned that the traffic will be very heavy in this small area, and will it affect our property value? Concern number 8, services. Will Quinte West be able to support water services to this subdivision? Will there be enough people and vehicles for fire and ambulance to support this area as well? These are valid questions when considering this proposal. Concern number 9, Quinte West's official plan. The Quinte West official plan of 2019 states that Quinte West prioritizes protecting rural and agricultural lands. The new official plan shows that the area behind us is to be used for future residential. And I'm hoping that means future plans, as was indicated to my husband and I when we moved from the GTA to this area 4 years ago. Please consider my questions and concerns before voting on rezoning 1436 to 1476 Old Highway 2 Belleville. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Anyone else like to come forward? Please state your name and address, please, for the committee and for the record.
Okay. You want to go ahead? No, go ahead. My name's John Tate, and I live at 1404 Old Highway 2. That would be 3 doors over from me. A lot was talked about the septics. I'd like to know what's going to happen with the rainwater from the roads and the roofs. And other than Crystalline, we agree with her.
Okay. I'm sure there'll be a stormwater management plan when and if it gets down to that point in time, but it's a ways away yet before on that, but it will be addressed, I'm sure. Sir, you would like to come forward, please?
Gord Parker, 1392 Old Highway 2. I'm about 4 places away. Okay, I don't understand why the plan that was set up and was due to not end for any near future, why is it being altered at this time? If the thinking was good at the time, why is it not good now? Can we
Okay.
have direct response on that or not?
Well, I can ask planning staff, maybe you could address that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, to you and to Mr. Parker and the audience. So as you see with these applications that come forward, the way the planning process works is that where we develop, at a city level, we develop an official plan, which gives the planning policy. The opportunity is always there for a landowner applicant to make an application for change. So in this situation, the city has not at this point in time moved away from the plan. It's a request to the city to change the plan. So that opportunity is afforded to any landowner. They can make an application to change the policy. The committee and council have to decide whether they are okay with that change in policy, but the policy that's in the plan right now still stands until this application goes through its process and comes to a conclusion. But that opportunity is afforded to everyone.
Will there be another opportunity to discuss this if indeed it is changed?
For an application like this, for a project like this, there's a number of applications. The official plan amendment, application and zoning, and then there would be, following that, a more technical application, plan of subdivision, I think is the proposal here, which is the process for looking at the more detailed level of how the engineering is going to work, looking at the traffic analysis, how the lots are going to be laid out, how the infrastructure is going to be developed. That would be another application. It would go through a public process and you would be notified for public input.
And do we know, is this individual going to be not just the sales agent for the lots, but indeed the developer for the project?
I cannot answer that. I don't know if the representative can answer that. That's not something that we normally can know or guarantee. We usually know, depending on, we work very often with the same developers and we know whether they're in the building game or whether they're in the developing game. In this case, we don't know that, so I would have to pass that question to them.
Information to know, because it changes how your response would be to a completely different situation. If he's simply flipping and then it has to go through another process to get all of the individual approvals for the lots that were granted, which would not necessarily be the number they have asked for, which I believe is over the top. I think it's too many. That's my personal opinion. Do I think it's better than the last proposal? On a positive note, yes, it is. However, I still think it's too far reaching, and I think not enough information is available to us to understand all the changes that could occur and exactly who's doing who to what when.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I think that's a good point you make, and I think that's something that is always a challenge with projects like this, because of the fact that there are a number of applications and they kind of get more detailed as you go through the process. And obviously, as residents, as neighbours, you want to know the details right out of the box. You want to know exactly what is intended and how all of the concerns are going to be answered. At this point in time, now an applicant can come in with multiple applications at the same time, but from the perspective of working it through the process, the question that's on the table for this application at this point in time is at the policy level. Is this a land use that's appropriate at this time in that location? The details will come later, but we're focusing on the policy issue at this point in time.
Would there be a independent special vote on this particular scenario or not?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
In other words, we take it to the public and say, Quinte West folks, how many of you are in favor of losing this versus having it the way it currently is and changing the rules?
No, the city of Quinte West is a planning authority under planning legislation, so ultimately council make the final decision on planning applications that come in under the Planning Act. The committee is the representative body, so committee makes a recommendation to council, staff make a recommendation to committee, committee make a recommendation to council, council make the final decision. Obviously the opportunity for public input is exactly what we're doing right now. This is your opportunity to have your voice, and then it's with the committee and ultimately council to make a decision.
Okay, well, that starts on to my next referral. At this point, it appears to me on this drawing that I think the density, A, is too great. B, I think the traffic would be too much. I think C, it couldn't handle it for all heavy trucks for what you're talking about here. They're doing septic systems, bringing in septic tanks. They're putting in water, they're putting in hydro, they're putting in down the road, if indeed it's going to kick up the sewers, then it's hydrants, then it's lights, then it's a provincial highway. Then there's a second in and out, there's buses, there's plowing, there's snow removal, you name it. It's a big chew, if you know what I'm saying, without a heck of a lot of additional how it would, when it could, or even should.
Again, to Mr. Chair, I think the important point there is that you're correct. That's a very good summary off the top of all of the considerations for the creation of a new development anywhere in any municipality. Yeah, that's a pretty comprehensive list you gave there.
We're not done yet.
The comfort level that I can give you is that prior to construction happening, those issues would be dealt with. They're not necessarily on the table through this application. We're still at that level of deciding, committee and council deciding whether this is an appropriate form of development at this time in that location. But before construction can actually happen, those questions and those comments and those issues that you raised all have to get dealt with through that technical application, which would be a draft plan of subdivision, and then engineering that comes subsequent to that.
So should everybody decide that this is a little too wide a scope to be decided on at this time due to the fact that it's in a sensitive area, it's a sensitive decision, what might our time span be before we would next review it?
Again, to Mr. Chair, I think again, as far as this application, if council, if committee support the recommendation to defer, I think we're looking to bringing this back for a decision on this application, which is the policy question, next month. As to when the next round of application could come in, i.e. the detailed application, that would be in the hands of the developer to create their application package. That comes with a lot more supporting information for review by the city. So I can't give you a timeline. The applicant would be in the driving seat in terms of what that timeline would be for the next application.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to do is figure out how much possible time would I have to make a good case against this if indeed I wish to pursue it in that manner.
Again, hard to say without knowing when the application comes in. Just similar to this application, you would have the opportunity, you would be notified as an adjacent resident, you'd be notified of the application being submitted with a timeline prior to the committee meeting to put your comments together, to either provide them to the city in advance or to do that plus attend the public meeting. That would be a similar public meeting to the one we're having this evening for any future applications.
Now, I was told by somebody who believes they're quite knowledgeable in this area that indeed this individual septic system thing would not be viable. It should be a community swisher type system. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
I wouldn't be able to speculate on that at this point in time. As I say, our focus through this application is on the land use, in the form of land use. As for specific design of septics, we haven't seen enough detail to determine whether that's appropriate for this lot configuration. Again, that would come at the detailed stage.
Okay, so somebody is going to evaluate further. This plan has not been completely evaluated. Would that be correct?
The policy question has been evaluated.
Okay, we're dealing with the policy, which is we're going to change the policy to let you do something that you currently cannot do.
Correct.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Then the next thing would be what's legal, what's illegal, what's reasonable, what's not reasonable.
Detail, exactly.
Would that be correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so how much time would you guess, and I won't hold you to it, would you assume it will take to proceed to the next step?
I don't know. It really is subject to the application being made by the applicant. Now, what I can say, just to, that doesn't help answer your question by any means, but just to frame it up, when we get a project like this that has multiple stages to it, sometimes the timeline between this policy question getting answered and the next application can be 2 or 3 months. Sometimes it can be 2 or 3 years. It's really in the hands of the applicant.
I like your second suggestion. I'm 2 or 3 years. Sign me up.
Again, the city's not in control of that. That would be with the applicant. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'm not going to go through the whole laundry list at this point because we're not at that point because we don't know whether he's going to get over the next fence, which leads to the next level. Now, as a just point of interest, I see there's some activity occurring across the road from this current project, possible application location.
I believe they're tile draining there,
Yeah, they are.
yeah. But I think that has to do with cropping and cropland, I believe, is it Kel's doing that there, I believe? Yeah,
Now, possibly, now, my understanding is, and it may not be correct, that the same individual who is involved with this project owns that property as well. Would that be correct?
I'm not sure how much property they own in total, but maybe planning can tell me the
Sorry, Mr.
exact
Chair.
acreage.
Oh, yeah, don't have that figure. For
They're talking about the
No, I don't
acreage
wanna
across
know
the
Total
road.
number, just tell me, does he own the property across the road as well?
I'm not aware.
Again, we can't provide information on ownership of private properties. What I can say is there's no development application that we are dealing with
I'm aware of
on
so
that
I
property.
think he's gonna do one at a time personally, but the old story is, forewarned is forearmed. You can get ready for round two.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, that's got nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight.
No, it isn't.
I don't think we should be talking about that right now.
But anyway, we can't clarify because we don't know
All right, fine,
exactly.
we can't answer that question.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just give me 1 second, and we'll see if there's any other areas that we can get into at this particular time. Okay. So I take it we are not actually today deciding whether this goes ahead. It's simply going to be whether it is possible legally for it to go ahead. Would that be correct?
Yes, it's in a very early stage.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a proposal as of right now, and then the committee will decide whether we defer it or deny it, or where we go from here. And as the director said, it's in the early stages, and if it does get reconsidered, it will be in stages, and as it is presented to the committee and to the council to make decisions. If and when it goes ahead, we're not sure, it's up to the developer.
Okay, well, thank you. All of the rest of these questions are premature at this time because, A, we haven't decided what's going to happen at this time. So we'll keep these in the file
Okay.
for the next time.
Sure.
Thank you.
Certainly, staff will keep you notified if anything is coming forward in the future, that's for sure. Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to address this concerns or in regard to this application or questions? Okay, seeing none, staff, do you have anything further you want to add before I ask the committee to consider? You're good? Okay. All right, committee, you have heard the presentations, both from the developer and our staff, and there has been a request to defer. I know the original recommendation was to deny. I'm looking for direction.
I'll move deferral. Thank you.
Okay, I have moved. A seconder? Get down the table, Gerard Edison. Okay.
Point of information?
Okay, normally on deferrals, we don't debate, but if you want, if you just want clarification on something?
Oh, clarification. I wasn't going to debate it. I just was going to give some input, I guess, if we're deferring it, if they're deferring it for a different plan.
Well,
But
that's why I asked the, I guess, the director and, or the assistant planning director to give us an idea of what the deferral would look like, how long or whatever, when it's brought back. So I presumed if it was brought back, it'd be more in detail, is that right?
So I think, and I don't want to speak necessarily on behalf of the applicant, but I think there's two parts to the request for deferral. First of all, to have the opportunity to hear the comments raised this evening and to be able to respond to them prior to a decision being made. Whether that response will enact a change to the plan, I don't know at this point in time. We haven't had any information to let us know if that will be the case. But if there was a significant change to the plan, that creates another issue in that we may have to recirculate the proposal. But I don't know if the applicant wants to make a comment towards the deferral, but I think it's more about hearing the comments, being able to kind of regroup, consider the comments, and present any new information prior to the decision being made. That's my expectation.
Is that helpful at all, or?
That is helpful, but do they not wish to know our opinion on things? Just to save a step, I just don't know.
Well, we're not really making a decision on the deferral. We're just throwing it back, in a sense, to the developer to bring back another proposal, is the way I see it. And then we'll be making the decision down the road whether to accept or deny again.
So they don't-
Is that not right?
Immaterial
Yeah.
what our opinion is at this point in time?
Well, yeah, Mr. Chair. So I think the path, and I think Mr. Rock mentioned it. So when an application like this normally comes forward, it's fairly common practice, as the committee knows, to have a public meeting without recommendation, and then come back with a recommendation. That's what we did the first time. This time around, partly because we heard a lot of public input, not just about the form of development, but the nature of development of this site and the timing, that brought us towards the point that we were comfortable making a recommendation at this meeting. Also focusing on the fact that there's a significant policy question here around the timing of development on this site, that we felt comfortable making that recommendation. But we do acknowledge that there's a lot of work being put into this from the developer's side. They have made the request for a deferral just so that they have that opportunity for a bit of space between hearing public input and the decision, and it's with the committee as to whether they will afford them that space.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor, and I'm going to ask for a vote, and the motion is to defer any consideration, and it's been regularly moved and seconded. All those in favor of deferral? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next staff report is 7.2, 24-066 PD, draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment applications. The owner is Stakos Homes 2014 Limited, and the agent is Van Meer Limited. The location is Appledene South, 2nd Dug Hill Road, file number D12/M03/24 and T09/M28/24. Katie, would you like to address this application, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of the draft plan application is to obtain draft plan approval with associated conditions for a 74-lot residential subdivision. Appropriate conditions to the draft plan approval are typically used to address matters such as servicing, stormwater management, grading, road and utility installation, engineering drawings, and the provision of securities insurance by the developer. The conditions to draft plan approval are attached to the corresponding staff report as an appendix. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to place the subject's lands in the residential type 3 zone, open space zone, and environmental protection zone. The residential type 3 zone would apply to the 74 lots for single detached dwellings, and the open space zone would apply to blocks 75 and 76. The environmental protection zone would only apply to a portion of Lot 11 in order to appropriately recognize the hazard lands that are associated with the valley of Dead Creek. The zoning bylaw amendment will ultimately permit the construction of single detached dwellings on the subject lands should the application be approved. Several documents in support of the application have been submitted, including a planning justification report, a servicing design report, a preliminary geotechnical investigation report, and a traffic impact report. The subdivision is to be serviced with full municipal infrastructure, including municipal water and sewer services to be extended by the developer. The subject lands are located within the city's urban area, and further, the land is designated for residential development in the city's official plan. The proposed development layout is compatible with adjacent residential land uses, and the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and in compliance with the City of Quinte West's official plan. The applications represent good planning and are therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you, Katie. Do we have, would the developer or his agent like to speak before I carry forward any information you'd like to present at this time, maybe? Arnold, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Arnold Vandermeer, the agent for this project being developed by Stakos Homes. Basically, we're in the approval stage for draft plan of subdivision, also requiring there is zoning bylaw amendment. We've provided all the studies supporting of the design for this project. It's more of a planning issue. All the conditions that were referenced for the condition of draft plan subdivision approval are acceptable for us to be working with. I do know that there are a couple of people in the neighborhood presented some concerns of drainage issues within their subdivision, existing subdivision. The intent of our development is, what we're doing, how we're approaching it is that we are making sure that we receive any runoff that is coming on to this development. We're also looking at the groundwater situations. We don't want to change any of the groundwater situations. I think the complaints basically are groundwater tables, some pumps running excessively long. And we've had a fair bit of discussion with one of the property owners on Blossom Court. Rob was part of that discussion. I hope we've resolved it. I sent some information to him as well that we are not going to be aggravating his problems or their problems, but we can't be part of their solution. I don't think the city can also be part of that solution. It's an approved subdivision. We're dealing with groundwater situations, high rainfall events that are storing water in a soil for a time being. Some pumps run excessively long, and is their concern. But it's outside of our realm of the development. What we're asking for today basically is planning approval for the zoning, the draft plan of subdivision approval for the conditions that will go with it. And then the next course of event is sort of was precluded to previously on the other developments is we still have a subdivision agreement and engineering to finalize. And then through that process, I'm sure there'll be still some more discussions with city staff, the adjacent property owners, if there are any resolutions on those matters. And we're prepared to accommodate as much as we can. Like I said, we don't want to affect the groundwater table in that area, as well as we want to make sure, and it is basically a groundwater situation we're dealing with. I think when there may be some comment as well coming forth in regard to people maybe concerned with traffic. The traffic from this development, the peak per hour would only be about 75 vehicles per hour coming in or out of the development. That's again distributed as well through the various roads, going on to Second Deg Hill Road, going up Appledine Drive. There's some potential some cars will also use Parkview Heights to go over to Tripp Boulevard. But all those issues were looked at. The intersection, traffic at the intersections were looked at, are workable as well. So we feel the impact from traffic from this development was very minor into the existing neighborhood. We've also looked at no high density development. We wanted to make sure this development matched in with the surrounding neighborhood. You know, it's also detached single family homes. There's no really small lots going in. It's again, compatible neighborhood is what we're looking for. So we're looking for support from this committee to give us our approval for the zoning, as well as draft plan and subdivision approval. If there come further questions from the presentation of the public, I'm also prepared to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much, Arnold. Much appreciated. Okay, do we have anyone in attendance other than the applicant that would like to speak in favor? Please come forward.
Mr. Mayor, I'm Lisa Napick. I live at 229 Second Dug Hill Road, the two existing residential homes in front of that proposal. I do have noted with just some concerns that there is a lot of flooding to my property since all the development in the area has started. The other thing would be the traffic. Now, I did speak to Mr. Stakos a few years ago when this was originally, when the area was cleared, and I was told there was only going to be a dozen or less homes built and that there would be no access to Dug Hill Road, that all access would be through Parkview Heights. I guess that has changed. My other concern is that I'd like to know if I can get a copy of the survey, because I'd like to ensure that I'm not going to lose any more trees behind my own property, because the survey stakes are not there anymore that were there previously. And there was one more thing on my list. Potential start date of this, but I guess this is still in a planning position. So those are just my concerns presently. And Anyways, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Your concerns have been recorded and certainly can be addressed down the road. Anyone else have any general questions or opposition? Please come forward. Any general questions, concerns? Last chance? Okay, thank you. All right, committee, you have a recommendation here to approve, and I would consider direction and a motion, I guess, to support the recommendation if you so wish. Mr. Brown moves, Councillor McHugh. Any further questions or comment from the committee? Ms. Simmons?
Sorry, I have two questions. One is, what is the plan for the second Doug Hill Road? Are they going to be putting sidewalks in or stop signs? I don't know whether that's premature to ask, because it has been a concern if something needs to be done. As we're well aware, somebody died there, so we do need sidewalks and some sort of traffic slowing measures.
Well, I know there's something in the works, but Mr. Jackson can maybe elaborate a little more on it. And I know there's some more servicing got to come up that road eventually too, so maybe you could address that.
And I have another thing, but if he does that first, I'll wait till he finishes.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So Engineering and Public Works have retained a consultant to complete the redesign of Second Doug Hill Road. So currently that project's in preliminary design stages where we're looking at various options for the road, including pedestrian access, active transportation, and traffic calming measures. There would be several public meetings scheduled, and I believe the first one, we haven't announced it yet, but we're thinking in October at some point to go over the various proposals for how to redesign that road. So that's being undertaken right now.
Okay, you have a second question, Ms. Simmons?
The other is about the groundwater. So the water will stay there unless it has a way of drainage. So I don't know if there are going to be storm sewers put in the area. If it's already a problem, it may be magnified by the new development.
Would you like to address that also, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So with regards to, are we talking about Second Doug Hill Road or are we talking about Appledene South?
Either. I mean, obviously that drainage is an issue with the neighbors, so I just didn't know if there were any plans for drainage for this subdivision.
Okay, understood. Through you, Mr. Chair. So with respect to Second Doug Hill Road, we're looking at the urbanization of that road. So removing the ditches and installing a underground storm sewer network, which would permit more space within the road right-of-way to be used for pedestrian access. And then with respect to Appledene South, Mr. Vandermeer, his proposal has put forward conveying the storm network down to the pond south of the development, and that includes buried storm sewers. So that's considered the minor system, and then he's also got overland flow routes for when the minor system could become overwhelmed to the pond as well. So that's all been taken care of or looked at.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee, any other questions or comments? It's been regularly moved and seconded that we support the approval of the recommendations as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Okay, we now move to item 7.3, Staff Report 24-067 PD, a draft plan of condominium application. The owner is Diane McMacken and Daniel Delamora, and the agent is Sean Bergen. The location is 47 and 49 North Murray Street. File number is D09/T01/24. Katie, would you like to address this also, please? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this application is to obtain draft plan approval for a proposed residential common element condominium. The developer proposes to construct 22 townhouse units that are to be serviced by a private internal road and municipal water and sewer services. The draft plan prepared by Jewel Engineering shows 4 blocks for townhouses and 1 block for a private internal road. The applicant's intent is to develop freehold townhouse units on the subject lands, each of which would be a parcel of tied land having ownership interest in the common elements condominium. The condominium corporation would own the road as well as other shared common element facilities. At this time, the developer has indicated that the townhouses would be single-story, each with an attached garage. The developer has submitted several documents supporting the proposed development, including a functional servicing report, stormwater management report, geotechnical investigation, noise and vibration impact assessment, and traffic brief. The application for draft plan approval represents the first step in developing the subject lands. The proposed development would be subject to site plan control, where more detail or technical details pertaining to the development will be reviewed. Ultimately, the approval of this application would facilitate an intensification opportunity in the city's urban area on lands that already benefit from existing municipal services. The proposed residential development would take 2 underutilized parcels of urban land and provide additional housing types that are currently in need in the community. Overall, the application meets the general intent of the provincial policy statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Katie. Do we have anyone in attendance who wishes to either speak in favor, opposition, or have general questions regarding this presentation? Or would the applicant wish to have a few words, or the representative, I should say?
I'll keep it very brief. I'm Brian Keane with Jewel Engineering. We have helped the applicant with preparation of this application, and we've undertaken some of the studies ourselves and engaged other consultants. We've reached out to CP, Lower Trent Conservation, and all are supportive of the application. We have worked out quite a bit of the technical details, and we think that we've got some good engineering into this so far. There'll be more to do to finish up the design, but we hope to get this back for final approval sometime early in the new year, and hopefully maybe soon have some homes ready for people to live in.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Anyone else wish to come forward and address this application? Okay. Please come forward, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gord Routcliffe, 24 Leonard Avenue. Me and my wife live there. I've lived there for approximately 20 years. I moved to that neighborhood from the city to get away from a city environment, told that these single home parcels would not be able to be divided and put into very tight Toronto style of living right down my street. As it is on Leonard Avenue, it's very hard some days to back in and out of my driveway with a trailer or something because people are cutting from the lights where the gas station is, as North Murray is almost undrivable if you have a nice vehicle other than a pickup truck. With all this extra traffic and foot traffic up and down my street is already bad enough. I had to buy security cameras, people on my property doing not so nice things. The police, not much help as far as that goes. They say, we know these individuals, they live down beside this area. Beyond the concerns of the traffic cutting the lights and whatnot, there's also all the noise from all the other residents around also. Many residents in that small multi-block area bought there for a quiet, old neighborhood that was intended to stay that way, not a Toronto-style condo type living. I guess.
Staff, do you like to address that and in any way, in one form or another? I guess it's...
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, I think in the committee, through other applications, other places, and the city have kind of heard the same comments. And I think all I can really say to that is that the landscape has changed on housing and development. The pressures on urban areas, municipalities to effectively use residential lands to the maximum to be able to provide housing is far more intense than it used to be. Neighbourhoods that were considered very low density are seeing higher levels of density. There's always a balance point there, and there's always a potential point at which what may be higher density to yourself or somebody may be very low density in another scenario. But that's a change that we're going through. All municipalities are going through it. The direction provincially and locally is to make the best use of land. Obviously, housing market has changed as well. The need for and demand for smaller footprint homes is increasing. So what we try to do, and you based on your comments, I'm sure you won't agree with this, but what we try to do through the planning process is enable that higher density, but be sensitive to a degree to what's around there. This is not a multi-level residential block or an apartment or anything of that nature. It still is relatively low density development. As far as the urban area being able to accommodate that number of people, even a traditional urban neighbourhood. Again, we all get used to that, how much traffic is on our street. The reality is that our streets can handle a lot more traffic and a lot more pedestrians and stuff than is currently using them. So this is definitely falls within those remits. It's a change for sure, but as I say, the pressure is on municipalities to provide for this type of housing where we can. And from our perspective, this is still relatively low density, although I appreciate from your perspective it's not.
Okay.
So right at the end of my street is where the entrance of this is. All the cars that come down there are going to go down my street where kids are playing. They've been playing for 20, 30 years. And you're going to turn, I'm assuming this is low-income housing, is that correct?
No, it's condominium. There's no, this is not a cooperative housing project or anything of that nature.
Okay.
It's
So all these vehicles are going to be driving down my street and the other streets adjacent on either side. How are they supposed to support that traffic when people are just trying to get in and out for work or whatnot? It's already bad enough, and I've complained many times of people whipping down that street to cut the light.
Brian?
Yeah, Brian, can you comment on it? So basically, and this came up in the last conversation as well, so for an application like this, any form of development application like this, there's a traffic analysis is undertaken, and that traffic analysis looks at the surrounding area, looks at the capacity of the roads, the intersections, and makes a determination based on provincially recognised standards as to what level of traffic the road system can support. We would not be moving forward with an application that the road system could not support that traffic. Understanding again that from the perspective of a road user, the increase may be unpalatable to you, but it's still within the standards, and the road system can handle this additional traffic. But I don't know if the consultant wants to make an additional comment.
Does the city intend to resurface North Murray so it's usable, so at least those vehicles could use North Murray instead of going around the other way all the time?
Well, we can ask engineering, but I would presume eventually down the road, their streets have to be addressed, I guess, and probably down the road that'll have to be looked at, I would presume. Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Chair, yes, that's right. I'm not sure where North Murray sits on the city's capital plan for paving. I know the capital plan for next year is being worked out right now, but I am not sure exactly where that sits. But it will be in the future at some point.
I know all streets have a plan in place for renewal and upgrade, and something like this probably would move it ahead of maybe some other ones too, if it's going to have a more congested traffic flow or whatever.
It's
So,
definitely well over.
yeah. Councillor O'Neill and then Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would the resident be able to find out from city when that road is in the selection process? Because we do have someone that works full-time to do that, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I can absolutely reach out to asset management and see where North Murray currently is positioned in the asset management plan for repaving and upgrades.
you, I just have one more
Sure.
question, I
Sure.
suppose. I guess one citizen bringing their concerns isn't probably gonna do anything, but, this will probably go forward, I'm assuming, unfortunately. Could we at least make some plans for, noise and things like that while this kind of thing is happening? Dump trucks and vehicles up and down my street. You know, lots of people in the neighborhood work midnights, including myself and my neighbors behind me and whatnot. And, you know, if there's dump trucks and stuff waiting in front of our houses to go and do work in this development, no one's gonna get any sleep or be able to go to work and pay their bills.
Okay, thank you. Sure, they'll all be taken in consideration down the road, and certainly some of those concerns can be addressed, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, any other comments or questions? If not, and I know Mr. Brown had a comment, so we'll go with you next, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It sounds, and I can relate, we had some troublemakers on our street in Frankfurt. It sounds like if maybe having an issue with traffic safety too. There is a committee that deals with that, the accessibility and traffic safety committee. So that might be, if you go to the city's website, that you can find some information on that. But that would be outside of what this committee does. But it sounds, if you've got an issue, that might be something they can help you out with.
Okay, it's just, so yeah, the roads in general, I mean, I'm backing a boat or a trailer in, and it might take one or two tries. It's very tight. It's a small road. It's not a big, large, wide road, right? And there's cars trying to cut through, sit there honking and honking. I mean, it's a side road. It's not a highway. So that's why the traffic really concerns me. Yeah,
we're getting to be a more impatient society, but I would encourage you, if there are some issues there, there are always measures, looking at speed limits, looking at other traffic calming measures like speed bumps and that sort of thing. So I would encourage you, if there is an issue there, and certainly encourage your neighbors to reach out to that committee, and perhaps something can be done there for you.
Okay, committee, you've heard the comments, and you have a recommendation in front of you, and the staff have recommended approval of the recommendation to carry forward. I would entertain a motion. Mr. Brown? Councillor Descartes, any further questions or comments from the committee regarding this application? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we now move to staff report 7.4, 24-068 PD. The zoning bylaw amendment application, the owner is Batawa Development Corporation. The agent is Jeffrey Moorhouse. Location is 1610 Trenton Frankfurt Road. The file number is D09/S27/24. Madison, would you like to address this, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment application is to fulfill a condition of consent application B30-23S, which was conditionally approved on July 13th, 2023. Through consent application B30-23S, an 8.69 hectare parcel of land was severed for lot addition purposes and added to 1610 Trenton Frankfurt Road. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone the severed lands to the General Industrial Exception 5 zone and the Environmental Protection Zone. Applying the General Industrial Exception 5 zone to the property would harmonize the zoning between the proposed severed lands and the recipient parcel, as well as facilitate the development of the severed lands with outdoor storage for the existing mulch operation on the property. Any proposed development on the property would be subject to the site plan control process. The Environmental Protection Zone would be applied to recognize the field-verified wetland and associated 30-meter setback that is present on the southwestern portion of the proposed severed lands. The proposed retained lands would remain in the Service Industrial Exception 6 holding zone, Rural Zone, Residential Type 4 Exception 2 holding zone, and Residential Type 2 Exception 7 holding zone. Overall, this application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms with the City of Quinte West's official plan. This application is therefore recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Madison. And I do note we have Mr. Moorhouse virtually here, or on the phone, I guess, if we need to ask him any questions or comment. Anyway, other than that, I would ask if there anyone in attendance who wishes to address or have applications or consideration for this application of questions. None noted. Okay, committee, you've seen the recommendation, and the recommendation is to approve. Any questions or comments, or I'll entertain a motion. Mr.
I had a
Edison?
question, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
First, the trail that's running through there now, so the trail's going to be terminated?
No, I don't think so. It's further to the west, is it not?
No.
The old road track?
Rail bed. Is
Yeah,
the-
that's what I'm talking about. I think it's further.
No, the rail, if this is going to be part of the composting facility, the old rail bed where our water line comes into Battawa runs right down through there.
I think it's further west.
I think it runs down the edge of it.
Yeah.
So it's just the area in black there that's subject to the application, not the
But it's, so we're going to the south, we're not going to the west?
No.
So it's not going to impact the trail at all there?
No.
Okay, that's the only question.
No, that's, as I said, it's further west, the rail line and where the water line comes down.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation.
The whole parcel butts that, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that we're not losing
Yep.
trail space, that's all.
No.
But I'll move the recommendation.
And Councilor McHugh seconds it. Any further questions from the committee regarding this? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, your comments regarding applications and staff reports have been recorded and will be forwarded to the members of councils together with the minutes of this meeting. Council will make a decision to approve or refuse the each stated application at the regularly scheduled council meeting of Wednesday, October the 16th. We now move into public input. Anybody wishes to come forward with public input? Okay, thank you. We now move, no presentations, no delegations. We have item 12, printed information. You have A, B, and A and B, I guess, in the zoning bylaw and building reports. And then you have the site plan control minutes of, at 12.2. So we'll entertain a motion to receive all three items there. And then there are questions, Councilor McHugh, Aaron, Mr. Forsyth. Any questions regarding any of those items or minutes or concerns that you might have with those? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We have non-printed information, none. So we have requests for information. We'll go around the table here. Anything tonight, Adrian? Mike? Zach? Okay, that's getting an easy sell. Aaron? Mrs. Simmons? Okay, JD?
Could I ask a question for the Director of Planning?
Yep.
It's regards to parkland reserves. When a developer does an application, they have to provide parkland or a percentage, and who decides on whether it's parkland or a percentage? And if you could just explain the whole parkland process for the committee?
Yeah, thank you too, Mr. Chair. So basically the tool that we use to determine where we take land or where we take cash to go into a reserve is based on the city's parks master plan. So the way that works is that based on population and housing growth, there are various thresholds for when you trigger the need for a new park. That's a combination of population and also distance from existing parks. So when a new subdivision comes on, we will look at that document, and that will tell us whether or not a new park is required within that subdivision plan, or whether we're going to take money from that, and that will support the development of other parks in other locations. So that's the tool we use. It's the city's decision. It's not the decision of the developer, but we use that Parks Master Plan tool, which is currently being updated. So we'll have a new set of criteria to work with in the near future.
So right now, we're waiting for Parks Master Plan. For example, on North Murray Street with these townhouses, they don't have anything for parkland.
Yeah.
But and we don't have our Parks Master Plan.
We do have a Parks Master Plan. It's basically going through an update, but it's still, the one we have was, I think it was, it's probably about 7 or 8 years old now, probably more. But it's still a valid document. It's still the document that we use. It's just going through an update, so.
because I'm looking at this and I don't really know of any parks close by there, and I'm wondering, do we need to tell them, or like, how
No,
does it go?
yeah, I think there's, I was probably remiss, there's probably another part to the conversation as well internally, is that based on the size of development, is it reasonable to expect a parkland to be developed? So like a site on North Murray, so it's a relatively small site with quite a dense development. To require a park would literally obliterate a good portion of the development site. So there's another consideration there as well. So in a situation like that, we would tend towards a cash in lieu to go towards a nearby park.
And what's that, like 1.5% or something?
No, 5%.
5%?
5%, yep.
And, for example, Stikos, the 73 units there. So,
Again, we would run that through the model, whether we would look at other parks that have been developed through other phases in the subdivision to the north. Based on dimensions and population, we would use that determination as to whether a new park was required. It's always a balance point for municipalities, because while we want to support recreational space and amenity space, there's also the challenge that parks require maintenance and development, and there's a balance point between on a financial standpoint as well as to how many parks the city can reasonably manage.
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Harrison?
Yeah, thank you very much. Couple of questions. I don't know that we answered them fully. One is the fact that we're taking a fair amount of agricultural land out of production and with the subdivision to the east. So I'm sure that's going to come up again. The other point is, still, don't forget, in any of these subdivisions, there are schools, and schools have playgrounds. So there's plenty of activities available for students in many areas. And it certainly is becoming more challenging every meeting and every process that we have to go through to build houses. And as a council, we're in the position where the provincial government is telling us that we need to build houses and telling us that we need to build more of them. And yes, we have a base, and the air base needs housing. And at this point in time, I'm told that people aren't asking to be transferred or remain in this area because of housing. So, but we do have some development coming forth in terms of the Heroes Landing building. Maybe you can give us just a brief outline of where we are with that particular area.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe two things I can make a comment in relation to the first thing you said there about the push for more housing, and I think this is relevant to some of the applications we see, particularly the first one on this evening, is that the city does have land that is designated and scheduled for housing development. It's not a lack of land that's restricting the number of houses that get built. It's I would argue that it's at this current point in time, it's as much the economy as anything that's perhaps stilting the amount of houses that are actually getting built. But we're not in a situation yet, and municipalities are not in a situation where we are supportive of unplanned growth, but there's still the expectation that growth is planned and is scheduled out over time, and the focus is always going to be on serviced property. So make that comment. On the other point, the development on Heroes Landing, you'll remember there was official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments for the apartment building on Heroes Landing. We're just completing the technical site plan exercise. We've got a few more comments coming in, but I think we should be able to provide approval on the site plan within the next couple of weeks, and they've already submitted building permits for review. So the building permits are in the city and currently going under review, and I'm sure the developers' timelines have changed somewhat, because I know they were hoping to start construction before the winter set in, but so they may be pushed back a bit, but their intention is still to start developing as soon as they have all approvals.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess the other thing I've commented on over the last couple meetings is I've had questions from people about Kingfisher Cove, and I see there's some type of activity going on there now. I presume maybe they're going to start a second phase. I know there was supposedly 2 more phases to go there originally, but Maybe you could comment on that, please.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, yeah, I believe they have reactivated, for want of a better word. The phase 2 was approved. It was approved some time ago. So they started construction on that. Still seems to be a bit on and off, but that's the proposal. They are moving on that second phase, but you're right in saying that there is also a third phase further towards Trenton boundary. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. At least just got something in the works anyway, so. Okay, do we have any notice of motion? Seeing none, our next meeting date will be Thursday, October the 17th, 6 p.m. I presume it'll be in this building, same time, same station, as they say, so I hope we didn't keep you too long tonight, an hour and a half, I guess, but anyway, we had a lot of various important stuff to deal with tonight and public concerns, so I thank all staff and everyone in attendance for your guidance and support tonight, and thank you, committee, and I would entertain the hard decision now. Mr. Edson, would you like to adjourn, would you? Okay, seconder, Ms. Simmons. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.